But you know, waking up at a certain time is a must for me. Going to the gym, doing my groceries, you know, my meetings are just jam-packed. In the evenings, I'm still doing some work from time to time.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a while, but I got a really nice video for you. A lot of people ask me how to become successful in Canada. So instead of me answering it, I just wanted to get somebody who has some experience in doing that. I recently had a chance to have an interview with Mr. Jason, who is the owner and founder of BioPip Executive Search Company. Actually, Jason's journey from being a stage artist and being a casting director to a corporate success story and now finally starting his own firm is really interesting. This is going to be a long video, more like a podcast and less like a really quick video. I think this video is going to be providing a lot of value to people who want to know how to do that. Before we start, I just want to give a little bit of introduction of you to my audience. Mr. Jason is an entrepreneur and he's been running his very successful company for past 2.5, 3 years now. He had a really successful corporate career in the past as well, but his internal entrepreneur allowed him to not work there and go and pursue his dreams. So welcome, Jason. Before we start, would you like to give a little bit of detail about your business and what kind of industry it operates in?
Absolutely. So my business is called BIPOC Executive Search, and it's a multidisciplinary search and consultancy. And so our primary business is helping organizations find their leaders. Obviously, it's really important to have strong leaders in all sorts of roles across all sorts of sectors. And so we are that broker or that middle people between individuals who are going to be looking for employment and the employers that are going to be looking for them. Because it's senior leadership, it's really tricky sometimes to find the right person to lead the organization, which is why a firm like ours exists. And we have a very strong commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion. That's actually one of our specializations, being able to bring people from all corners of society to our lists that we present to our clients.
Your company is in a really niche sector.
Very niche, yeah.
So the question that I want to ask you is that when you were in the industry, before starting your own thing, what was that motivation that actually, or what was that internal logic that you had that, okay, this is something that is worth pursuing? Because I'm sure before starting you had some doubts about industry, like how big is the industry? If I start my own thing, how well am I going to be? And what was that initial expectation if you leave your very successful career and go in the abyss and unknown?
Such a great question, Parth. I mean, the way that this all happened for me is I grew up in the arts and culture sector. So I grew up performing and I grew up writing productions and I grew up casting and doing things to actually put shows on stage. And when the world of executive search was something that I was introduced to, I said, wow, there's actually a lot of parallels and similarities between putting on an actual production and looking for talent to perform roles and actually working with organizations to look for talent to perform roles. And so when you're in the world of arts and culture and you're casting, you're getting people to come in to audition and they're showing you what they're capable of and they're trying to get a part. And with this world of executive search, that's similar. People are interviewing, but really what they're doing is they're auditioning. And there's a lot of other people interviewing and auditioning as well because they want to get the part. And so when I was able to see the parallels, I said, wait a minute, this might be a niche industry and this might be something that I wasn't thinking about before. But now that I see how closely aligned it is with what I love and what I've been doing all this time, I said, it's really not that different. It's a different industry, of course, and it's a different type of individual that you're looking for, but it's very same in principle. And when it came down to actually launching into my own business, I've always been entrepreneurial. I actually had my own business when I was in my early 20s, and it did fairly well. And when I started to work at other organizations, including being a partner by the end of the time I left my previous firm on Bay Street, you are still running your own business under the umbrella of a larger one. Because when you're a partner, you have to be entrepreneurial, you have to make networks and have contacts that will turn into generating business. So the next stop after partner, sometimes it's actually opening up your own shop. Not everyone does it, but for me, I felt it was just the natural progression and the right time as well for me to actually do it based on everything that I knew. And obviously what the world was really saying it needed more of that I wanted to respond to back in 2020 after the death of George Floyd, the racial reckoning that we've been having for eons that is continuing to progress, and us having those conversations about how we can address the problem systemically. So I felt, I'm one of the only individuals that knows this niche environment. I am someone who is so big on social justice and helping. And I said, it's really a time where I have to use my entrepreneurial skill sets and my love for making sure I can make change, turn into an actual business that I can grow and continue to help.
Yeah, so I hear a lot of your analysis was initially that both of industries have a lot of things in common, and you were in the possession of lots of transferable skills between those two. And you saw the opportunity that, this is something that I may be able to go and make a really good impact on, not only financially, but socially as well. So you took the jump. Now, the question that jumps to my mind right now is that when you saw that there is a market, what was that one thing that actually knocked your head, be like, Jason, look at this is a market? For example, if I'm doing a startup in tech and then I see another startup propping in the same industry, or if I look at the data and there is a gap in the market, so was it you saw some competitors like doing that, or was it you finding the gap in the market?
It was gap in the market. I would definitely say that. As an entrepreneur, and I know that some people will know where I'm going when I say this, it is really important to say you may have a love for something, but you also have to make sure that the market really needs it in order for it to be successful. It's harder to convince people about needing to go in a particular direction. It's much easier to bring them on board if they already say there's a gap and I'm looking for someone to fill it. And so the gap, I would say, is when people are looking at executive teams across sectors and organizations, they're not seeing enough Indigenous, they're not seeing enough people of color on the teams. And people have been asking for this more and more and more. And I'm someone who's actually been on the side of the table where I've been advocating for the need for it more and more and more, and giving clients the reason why. And so, again, a lot of the systems conversations that we've been having about why are we saying that we have customers and audiences and clients that look like Canada, which is multicultural, but then when we look at people who are on senior leadership teams making decisions, it's more homogeneous. We don't necessarily see that plurality. And so the need that I was responding to was, okay, people want more of this. People are asking firms that do deliver upon executive search services to help them address the problem. And I was someone who had been helping to address the problem over years, but I would be able to do it even more if I actually created the business. I had a very strong narrative and compelling case for why we can and why other people should strive for that more and more.
I totally makes sense. You saw that people will going forward look for more diversity, not only at the lower levels, but at top levels as well. And you were like, okay, I'm gonna get you a diverse executive board, but I will make sure that they are really good at what they're doing.
Exactly.
So you just not only have a really diverse board, but you will get your business done no matter what.
Yeah. Good that you bring that up, because when people see the name BIPOC Executive Search, sometimes they assume that it precludes certain populations from being able to apply to positions or certain populations to vie for roles, namely people who are white. And that is not the case at all. We are a firm that actually is there for every single person. The reason why it's called BIPOC Executive Search more than anything is that people within the organization, by and large, look like myself, so that we're able to bring our lived experiences and realities to the narrative, to the conversation, so that we can better counsel clients, we can better look out for potential bias or discrimination in processes, but we always want to make sure that everybody knows that we are there to be of service to them. Our specialization, of course, is making sure that we can do processes that are inclusive, that are equitable, and that get a result, that everybody that looks at the result should say, okay, this is a process that had integrity. Yeah.
So Jason, as you mentioned that it's not only just skin of the color that you're looking for, but like a lot of factors. No matter, even if your team is more that looks like you, but even when you're hiring for folks, it's not like something like that you're just looking at one particular variable. Now, my question is, because you identified the gap in the market early on, is it plausible, is it valid to say that now you have a really huge market edge or monopoly in this small niche? Or do you feel like that there are more and more competitors popping up in this niche?
I wouldn't say that we have a monopoly. There's a bit of edge, I would say, but not a monopoly. The reason why I say that is because there's a lot of established search firms. And when I say that word, I mean search firms that have been around for decades and decades and decades, and I've worked in them before, that are doing a lot more with this work. And that's quite all right. I don't want to be a monopoly. I'm actually here trying to make the world a better place. And so if other organizations get better at this and they're doing this as well, that's actually a win. If I can be someone that inspires or motivates or has people who are think, okay, BIPOC executive search competition, we should do this too. For me, that's a win because I want people to be able to say that they're truly being served by all of the firms in this space. And we're always going to be able to differentiate because we're our own people. You know, we'll always think of our own ideas. We'll always look for ways to do things that are going to really be helpful to people in the marketplace. So, you know, we're not a monopoly. And you know,
market edge for sure.
With some market edge for sure, yeah.
And it is a great idea that if you're able to influence the market to go in a certain direction, that means that even if you're not the biggest firm in the market, you are able to set trends, and that gives you another sort of credibility when you are looking for new clients.
Absolutely.
So, looking for new clients. Now you have started, let's say 2018, 2019, 2020, Jason started this company. Given the fact that you mentioned that there are big giant corporations that have been in this industry for decades, how would you get your first client?
Yeah.
How would you convince somebody else to not to go to this establishment, but go to your small company instead?
Well, the thing is that when you are in any business, you have to actually know what the, if I can use the word competitors for the sake of argument, are doing and how you differentiate. So again, because I worked in much bigger firms before, I was able to say I know what is offered there. And for some people, that is okay. That's probably what they want. That's what they feel that they need. For me, I was able to say, okay, this is how we differentiate from the other firms. This is how we can fulfill upon the gaps and some of the problems that you need solved. And being able to clearly show, you know, potential clients that I know what the other firms or the other services are like because I worked in it. And here's how we can differentiate. Here's what we can help with. Here's what we can do. It allows clients to say, great, we want to have options. So it's not to say that they're not going to work with those other firms before, because again, we're not a monopoly. They're not going to work with us all of the time.
Yeah, it's an open market.
Yeah, it's an open market, but at least it gives them another option where they can say, in any given year, or any given 3 years or 5 years, we're going to need to use a range of firms to help us with some of our hirings. Now that we know that you exist as well, we want to use you for some of it as opposed to some of the other firms all the time. So for me, it's really about knowing who else is in the market, knowing what they do, knowing how to differentiate, and knowing how to tell a compelling story about what you could be getting or what you could be getting over here as well. Yeah.
It's like going, like if I want to go to a place, I have Uber and Lyft in mind. It's not just exclusive Uber. So you just want to go into that special set of companies where you are likely to get a customer and you don't want to monopolize the whole industry. That's a really great way to think about like growing your customer base. Yeah. Now, once you have your customer, now you've identified the market gap. You establish that you're going to go to do the business. You put yourself out there. You get the client. Now you start doing work. So 2 questions. Hopefully, first few clients, you are giving them extraordinary service because you're going to make a name for yourself and your company. But now you have more workload than you alone can handle. Because most of the startups, again, even your startup, they start single-handedly because initial capital is not something really great that you can just hire a team beforehand, and it doesn't make business sense as well. That before getting the client. So when do you identify that this is the time where I actually need to get somebody to do my work for me, or this is the time to get my first one or first couple of hires?
Yeah. Question. I mean, it's so dependent on your industry and so dependent on the revenue you're able to generate within any given time. You know, for me, I was very fortunate to be able to say that I had someone that I was working with at my other firm that said that she would join right away, day one, and her name is Erica Ng, and I want to say her name because I celebrate her every day as I do everyone else on my team. Yeah. And you know, I'm someone who thinks very strategically, and I think the word strategic sometimes can be put into like a negative kind of box, but I think, you know, people have to, you know, be okay to think about things in a positive way. And so the reason why I bring that up is, you know, obviously in 2020 was a really hard time. The pandemic actually led to a lot of people being laid off or let go from their positions. And in that sort of market, what that means is for someone who's going to be thinking entrepreneurially, you can be creative about how you bring people on board. Because people may say, I'm open to maybe doing contract work because right now I need to be generating some sort of income. And I understand that not everyone's hiring for full time. And so for me, I had one full-time employee, and that was Erica, who I just brought up, who's now my VP of operations. And I had a couple of other people that I either knew in the industry or knew from well back when we maybe studied together, so we had some sort of relationship, that I asked to come on board as contractors to start, where I said, here's how you would be able to generate income. As we bring in projects, you'd be getting paid. And quickly, within the first 6 months, we're able to make a very compelling case to the market in terms of we can fulfill the gaps. We're differentiated in this way, and like you said, the quality of work has to be there, and our work quality is so high. And so we were generating clients really quickly, and then I was able to start bringing people on full time pretty quickly after. And so for me, where I'm going with all this is, for any entrepreneur, you really have to think about context, think strategy, and say what's going to work best. What ended up working best for me was 2020 was a time where a lot of people were looking for work. And I was able to say, okay, I'm going to leverage this situation. But I was able to fulfill upon my promise to the individuals I spoke to that in short order, I will make sure I'm bringing you on full time, which is what's the case. And now we have 20 employees. Yeah.
Like I would describe it as an exponential growth, because the industry that you're in, even the fact it's niche, your growth is relatively really positive than what the market has been experiencing past few years because of the pandemic and their side effects.
Yeah.
But in the story that you mentioned, your great VP, Erica, I can see that the underlying thread of your network is your net worth coming up a lot, because you knew Erica, and that's why, and you knew her work, I'm assuming, because you worked with her, so you knew that that's a great person to hire. Now, when young people like myself who are looking to do something entrepreneurial, or they want to do something that they always wanted to do but does not have those network yet because they haven't gotten the opportunity to work in a really professional environment like yourself where you worked in your past company, how would you suggest that you go about gathering a team of individuals or a group of people which are really dedicated like Erica and possibly want to work with you in future endeavors?
Yeah, so important. You know, I think sometimes people, you know, they already have in their head what they think the answer is going to be, and so they don't even ask. Right, so oftentimes people just assume the answer is going to be no, and so they don't even ask.
Just ask.
They just don't ask. I mean, you and I are doing this interview right now because you asked me, and I know that you are someone who's been really generative in terms of building your own networks, building your you know, subscription base in terms of people who want to follow you. And that's because you are constantly saying, you know what, I'm going to ask and I'm going to see what comes after asking. You know, even when you put out a video, what you're doing is you're asking people to watch. Maybe not directly because you don't know them, but you're like, I'm willing to put myself out there with the hope that you'll respond. And I'm okay with the fact that some people might say no, but some might say yes, right? And so for me, you know, when building my team, yes, I had some networks, but there were some people that I didn't actually know very well, but I still asked them because I said, I respect for your work, and this is what I'm up to, and I want to see if it aligns with you. And oftentimes when you do have, you know, something that is very important for the world or even to yourself, because you can make the case if it's really important to you. You know, it really gets people to say, I'm on board, right? And I can tell for you, if I can just sing your praises part, that you know, you doing things that really helps communities is really important to you, which is what you're doing in this interview, right? How can I make sure that I get information out there that's going to get people to say, I was able to open a business, or I was able to, you know, see things happen in my career that I wasn't able to before.
And I think the people who have more entrepreneurial skills, or people who are really successful, are not really afraid of rejections, because as you said, like, you are asking a lot of people to join your vision, and I'm sure you had your fair share of rejections, whether in terms of business and clients or in terms of employee, be like, I am not comfortable joining, or were there any situations where you had rejections and you felt that there is a little bit less momentum in yourself, but then you psyched yourself up to go and chase your dreams because it matters to you, because it matters the world to you, because that's your dream, right?
Yeah.
So are there any instances where you felt lack of confidence, self-motivation?
I would say yes and no. Yes, in that, you know, we all face rejections. When I was more in the arts, there was a time where I was actually performing on stages, and if you are auditioning, you get a lot of rejection, right? You know, you put yourself out there, you're really hoping for a role, you do your very, very best, and then you have to live with the fact that you're turning on the television and someone else is in the role that you auditioned for, right? So that's a small example, and then of course there might be bigger examples, such as, you know, you vying for business, and then the rejection is you didn't get the actual work, someone else did. And then you see them working on it, you're like, oh, I wish that was us, I would love to actually been working on that. So rejection is a part of everyday life, but the thing that I would say is that everybody's an entrepreneur. Every single person's an entrepreneur, just by virtue that we have to be resilient, and we have to get up, and we all experience rejection. We all have goals, we all have dreams, we all have objectives, we all have big dreams in many instances. The thing that makes some people not actually pursue entrepreneurship the way that some other people might is the world is not a kind place, in that it doesn't always want to make particular outcomes accessible or a reality for people, right? So the way that I like to lead is I want everybody to present as the leader that they are, right? It's not just me at the table talking all the time. It's not me making all the decisions. I want to co-create, and I want
you create an environment where other people that you trust and now you have hired in their team gets to say it.
Yeah,
Again, when you have like a team of 20 people, so, and not everybody at a certain level where they are actually able to come and give a good advice on hiring. Although their advice is important, you must give weight to some advice more than some advice less. Now, coming back to my question, the question is that as you grow in your own company, where initially you were one-man army and you're doing everything, and now you're just focusing on the most critical part and giving less critical part to other people that you have hired now. How much of the leadership skills versus the day-to-day genius that you need to have in order to operate a business, how much of those skills you have to feather, and where do you determine that this is the situation where I have to be the leader and I have to lead my team in this new direction, even though they're not comfortable, and then on the other side, you'll be like, okay, this is where my team is correct. I shouldn't be pushing them too much on this one. How do you feather that?
I mean, you know, it's really, the answer is really in one's experience, right? And so, if I have a particular amount of experience, either working with certain types of clients, if I have certain experiences with respect to running a business, you know, if I have experience with respect to situations that I've seen happen in the past, then there are going to be times where I'm going to have to, as a leader, say, it's going to be best if we actually explore this territory, we go this direction, as opposed to when something's vague and quite nebulous and you're not really certain and you're trying to be open. Those are definitely going to be moments where it's like, you know what? maybe that is the best answer, and so let's go in that direction.
Yeah.
But even if there are certain directions that I feel very strongly about, I'm still the type that actually wants to hear from people because they might give you a lens or perspective that makes you say, I'm so happy that you were involved because that's exactly what I needed to hear to know this is the direction we should be exploring. So it's a balancing act. It's never going to be the same sort of approach.
And it comes with experience. And it comes with experience as you, I'm sure, progress in the company and how much years of experience you have running.
Yeah.
Recently, I had a chat with Chief Director of Health Canada, who runs a team of like a bunch of people who are doing lots of important and really valuable analysis on like masks and what kind of capital allocation needs to be done by the government so that the Canadian people's health is prioritized for any given situation. Now, when I was having the conversation, the gentleman over there was in that position for over 12 years, and he always has been in positions of leadership, but never been on a position where he was the actual data science doing the coding, but just a team manager.
Right.
So my question to you is that now you're in the position where you have been managing this incredible team of yours for quite a few years now. In order to develop leadership skills, is it something that you need to know the lower level first and then you gradually progress? Or is it something like the director that I had a conversation with where constantly he just performed at a higher level, and then as he grew in his career, he acquired those leadership skills to manage a larger and larger team without knowing the nitty-gritty details of what is going on underneath?
So this is what I think. I think the world is such a complex place, and there's never one way, right? Sometimes people are like, what's the answer? And they're looking for one way. Certainly, there's going to be great leaders who started from the ground up and literally did every role before becoming the person at the helm leading and running a team and organization. And then other times, there are going to be people who have not had that same trajectory. Maybe they're doing great things in other fields, but they're not necessarily a subject matter expert, and yet they're here leading a team. For me, it's all about what people do with what they are there to provide. So the person that is not the subject matter expert should not be leading as if they are. Because sometimes there are some people who are not the subject matter expert and come into the room and say, I'm going to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
This is right. They need to actually say, how can I empower my team? How can I actually create magic so that they're performing well?
Yeah.
I'll do things based on my strength. They do theirs. And lead in that way. Whereas someone who has literally gone through all of the ropes,
Yeah.
and then they have a team, may be able to say, you know what? That's great, but let's do it like this. This is why it's going to be better because I've been there when I was in that role that you're in
Because
right
you have
now.
the
Yeah,
experience.
yeah. So, when I'm doing recruitment, I'm not looking for the way. I'm actually looking for, based on who you are, based on what you developed and what you have in your toolkit, how are you going to show up based on that? And so I would have a problem, again, if the person who's not the subject matter expert acted like they were. And with the person who is a subject matter expert, of course, they can delve into things based on the fact that they've been there, done that.
And because your opinion on this question was really important for me, because all your company is expertise in is like hiring leaders, like top level executives. So when you're hiring, you mentioned that you are looking for two things: a person who is great at creating an environment where people are supported, who has the expertise to do it, or you're looking for people who has the expertise in it in themselves, but also allow other people to contribute to the final decision.
Yeah.
And that's a really great way to put it, because I remember you mentioned last time that you were working with Airport Authority of Canada and you were looking for top executives there, and then you dedicated a lot of resources to hire the great person for that, and you went through all of your checklists to hire them. Now, when you are dealing with like 50 clients, running a team of 20 people and enjoying your personal life as well, I'm really curious about people who are doing entrepreneurship. What is their morning routine, and how when do you start your day? Like, everybody has 24 hours in Canada. So how do you manage those hours, starting with your morning routine?
All the secrets. I'm an early riser. I know that there's a lot of studies that show that early risers sometimes have a bit of an advantage because they can get a lot more done before everyone else starts to get onto them.
4:30, 3 o'clock?
Around, I would say any time around 5,
Okay.
somewhere around there.
That is reasonable, yes.
Yeah.
I had some answers about 4:30, 3 o'clock. That is unbelievable.
Yeah, no, that's too early. Maybe I would say like 6 o'clock is probably like the latest. So early riser, I do go to the gym a couple days a week. Yeah. So that's really important to me to be able to say this is time where I'm really focused on self. I'm really making sure that I get my adrenaline going as well for the day, and I find that to be very, very important. I'm someone who doesn't necessarily have a very strict sort of routine in terms of breakfast is every morning, right? I know some people do, and it's great if that works for them. I'm more the type that will actually go based on, the amount of time I have to do certain things in the morning and how I feel. I try to do some grocery shopping as well in the morning. So what I do generally is that the days that I do go to the gym, those are days as well that I will run to the grocery store after. So I go to the gym really early, go to the grocery store, buy some things that I have for myself. I do work from home, so our team is working remotely, and then we'll get into the office periodically, but mostly for client-related meetings. My days are generally really back-to-back, so literally,
Lots of meetings.
yeah, like every day, just lots of meetings, lots of meetings. I'm really blessed to have a strong team that I know is taking care of some other things while I'm in meetings. And I will say that the evenings are another shift, I like to say sometimes, because I'm in meetings all day. I find that I'm responding to correspondence, etc. At night. I never send emails at night though, because I do not want people to say, wow, it's 9 o'clock and the president of the company is emailing me right now. So what I'll do is I will prepare the emails for sending them when I'm up in the morning. Or schedule them. Or save to drafts or any other technique, so that I can really respect the fact that people really should be able to check out in the evenings. And that is for clients as well. I try to make sure that I'm not, showing up people's email, unless of course it's something that needs to get in front of someone like immediately. Yeah.
But I can
immediately. Yeah.
But I can see that there is a clear, although it's not very strict like some other people, there is a clear structure to how you organize.
The thing that's not always so clear is like, when food comes into the picture. I promise I'm eating, and I try to eat very, very healthy. But waking up at a certain time is a must for me. Going to the gym, doing my groceries, my meetings are just jam-packed. In the evenings, I'm still doing some work from time to time. I have certain places as well that I like to see myself doing work. It's not always going to be in my place.
Maybe a good coffee shop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then, I do have balance. I feel like I have a really great social life. I have great people.
If you're running a company and you are always involved in the day-to-day, then you would actually lose yourself, because it's not something that you're going to do for a weekend or a month. It's going to be a long term. So you have to have that balance. Now, just digressing for a second a little bit, just a curious question. Generally, the advice we get as entrepreneurs is that CEO, right, like when you're initially starting up as a startup, like focus on everything, but then after a point, once you have a good team, you live in the future.
Yeah.
You are not day to day anymore. You are looking into 5 years, 2 years, 10 years ahead of the time and seeing how you're going to navigate the ship. Because as your ship becomes bigger and bigger, it takes a little bit of time to turn it in a different direction.
Yeah.
So when you are like jam-packed all day, what time is it in the gym or in the morning when you're rising? Are you thinking about, okay, how am I going to go about this? Or is it just a curious little question?
Yeah. Standing meetings throughout the week that is more along the lines of focused on the strategy and the bigger picture, whether it's operations meetings that I have twice a week, whether it's marketing meetings that we have once a week, whether it's meetings with different partners in terms of thinking about how we're going to go about the next couple weeks, months, years, etc. And so within the week, it's woven in as our ongoing practice. And for myself, I'm someone who likes to always take notes. So when I capture an idea, it becomes a note. And I go back to it and I measure whether or not certain things were actually achieved. You know, my ideas are pretty out there. Like I'm one of those individuals that wants to make work fun, that wants to make relationships fun. And so I'll throw an idea and I expect other people to throw an idea and then we're like, let's just do it. Let's just
brainstorm, yeah.
No, and we literally, Parth will like put a date in the calendar and say, we are committing because we already have a date, we signed a contract, we have someone that's involved now, and so now we have to do it, right? And so I'm one of those individuals that tries not to be overly ponderous. If something is exciting and it feels good in your body and it feels good in your mind and you have people who are really excited about it as well, just like
do it.
Do it.
Like don't stop thinking about it and start acting.
Yeah, because if you're never going to know what the outcome's going to be, good or bad, unless you actually get something out there,
It's like,
right?
Unless you actually get something out there. It's like coming back to your point, like go and ask if you want to ask. Don't just just go and like play the game instead of thinking about the game.
Exactly.
Makes total sense. Now, coming back to the last section of the interview, and I ask this to every person that I know because technology plays a huge part in our roles, and I'm sure you're working from home, so you're using a lot of technology. So my question is, what's your EDC, like everyday carry? What kind of gadgets you have? Like is there a special gadget that only entrepreneurs are using, or is it just like you normal folks like us use same phone, same laptop? It's the way you use it.
Like hardware-wise, or are you talking about hardware?
Just the gadgets. Like a lot of people, my audience is very tech savvy, so I just want to give them. It's like generally, it's not like you have a freaking 5th generation advanced phone to do run your company. You use the same phone to do it. It's just the way you use it, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to hear that from you.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the phone. Like I think I have the latest iPhone.
Yeah.
And so that's something that like I guess attached to me, right? But I will say that I don't ever have my ringer on, so I can never hear the phone. But when I'm around the phone, then I can see like if things are there for me to respond to, and all of my like day is scheduled, and so I don't like miss meetings or calls because I know what to expect. But yeah, outside of that, my laptop is another thing, and those are the two things that I just
That's what I would say is like a lot of people who believe that people are going ahead. A lot of comments on the videos be like, yeah, I'm sure you live in first world country, you have latest gadgets, but internet connection and a couple of gadgets, that's all you need. You don't have to have like the state of the art or maybe like something special that is only limited to quite a few people.
Yeah.
And a last question for this, related to this idea, but not exactly, is that when you have a little bit of capital that you can spend on apart from business, what were those two purchases? Where you spend the money and you're like, this is the best money I've spent, and then what was the another purchase? It was like, yeah, it didn't work. Like I could have skipped on that.
I'm really big on experiences.
Yeah.
So whether it's travel, or whether it is just being in the company of great people and you want to, just have memories built.
Okay.
And so, I recently was in Spain, for example, and that was an incredible trip and something that I feel has just energized me in ways that I just never thought imaginable. I try to always be an energized person, but this was like a really great experience. A good pillow is important. I think everyone should invest in a good pillow. You're going to spend a lot of time there sleeping. So, sometimes if you're thinking of how to spend your money wisely, like save the pennies for a good pillow. I have a pillow that stays a little cool because it's good to actually have, your head not be overheated. So
temperature control.
The temperature control one.
Good ones.
Yeah, I hear IKEA has some good ones as well.
Yeah.
In terms of a bad purchase, flipping the coin around. I mean, look, I have a home that I rent out, and I've had the need to have some contractors do some work, and there's a situation where a contractor pretty much just said, bye, and I'm like, where is that person now? And I've been trying to get them to come and do the work, and it's been almost a year and a half. So that was money that I thought was well spent that in retrospect was just not. Yeah.
You got scammed, but that's not your fault.
I got scammed. Yeah. Can I look at the camera and say I got scammed? Don't get scammed. Yeah.
Hire good folks to do your homework.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hire good folks to do your homework.
Yeah, yeah.
Not homework, but home reconstruction.
Yeah, look at all the Google reviews and like literally read all 500. Yeah.
So we started from like working in a big company, then thinking about your own company, then actually building your own company, getting your first client, hiring a good team, scaling that team, and then actually gathering some capital and making money for your company, but your employees and yourself as well. Now, at the end of this long journey, when you have established your company firmly, where it's not just a startup anymore, but it's a revenue generating asset for yourself. The final question is, once you finish that journey and you're at the last stage, how would you suggest that somebody who is 24, 25, that's my average age of the audience, when you're in that age, what kind of investments you should do? A year ago it was all crypto, but now we know it's weird. So as a long-term investment, or as an investment which is really good, what kind of investments you suggest someone should do?
On that, and I know that it's really expensive in some settings like Toronto. Downtown Toronto, but I think people have to be okay to also think about property that might be out of the city, right? Again, just thinking strategic, it's like, okay, well, if Toronto's this expensive, then surrounding areas are going to, over time, become more and more expensive. So if I spend money there now, don't even have to live there, I can find people who are gonna rent, because I think you can always find renters. That's a really good investment. I was 29 when I actually bought a house in downtown Toronto. I was 26 when I bought my very first condo in downtown Toronto. And I ended up selling the first condo, buying the house, and I bought another condo, I sold that, then I bought a fourth condo that I also have right now. And so real estate has always been something that I've thought about. And I got into the real estate market because in 2008, we had a global recession. And again, in terms of thinking strategically, people would think that I had no business being able to get into some of the spaces that I got into, but because it was more of a buyer's market and people were selling a bit lower, I said, this is a time where I have to get in. And I just made it work. And I was like, okay, I'm stretched, but my very first condo, I ended up getting a renter, so I was living with a renter because I was thinking that would be what I would need to help me pay the mortgage, right? And just start growing revenue. And the equity started to climb and climbed. And then by the time 2011 came, because I bought this so low in 2008, I then had the money that I needed to get that house in downtown Toronto, right?
The 29th one when you bought.
Yeah, but just before turning 30. So I would say real estate. There's obviously a lot of other things, but this is a thing that I would say I am not an expert in terms of investing. So I actually have someone that I work with at Investors Group, and I'm really big on, for myself, having a superhero team who are experts at what they do, being a part of your team, right? So what I mean by that is, I have the barber that I always go to. I have looking sharp. Okay, thanks. I have the financial advisor that I always go to. I have people that are like my go-to people in certain industries. Even for my own industry, I know that there are some clients that are like, Jason's the person that I go to whenever we need an executive hired, right? You just find your tribe. And so I have a real estate agent that I always go to. I just have all my people. Build yourself a good team. And with respect to, investing, I'm like, when I was actually starting with Investors Group, I was not in the position that I'm in right now. I was someone who they were like, yeah, you're really ambitious, you're making a decent living because you're working at this firm. But, I started obviously more junior and got to this point. But even when I was more junior, I actually I was one of their clients. And people would be looking like, does this person even have the right level of income to actually have this? And I'm like, there was no fee. They didn't charge me anything. They pretty much said, we make money as we help you with investments. So I'm like, You mean I'm not paying you like $100 or $1,000 a month? Like, no.
Even if you don't have the capital, get started.
Yeah.
Get
Even if you
yourself
don't
Yeah.
have the capital, get started.
Because
and
once
get
you have
yourself
that
a good
capital,
team
you
to-
won't have the time
Because
to go
once you
out
have
and
that
build.
capital, you
Google,
won't have
like,
the
you know,
time to go
financial
out and build
advisors that don't
Google, like-
actually charge you anything up front. They just want to be able to help you grow, because as you grow, they grow. That's their business model. And so, you know, if someone were to ask me like where they should invest, real estate, yes, if you can. But then also just find a financial advisor. Like literally, just find someone who's going to help you with investments that you're going to be able to trust. And you can start very conservative if you don't want to take any risks. And over time, you can change that. I, for myself, am still pretty conservative with my investments. I'm not someone who likes to
Not
take.
balling out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I get it, I get it. And that was my last question, but when you were explaining this, I just want to briefly touch on a really small topic, was that I see a lot of
verticals that you went. Your career is really deep, but also very wide. Because starting from like stage play and getting people to cast, and then going into this company, then starting your own, and then finally going into real estate. And I think you partially answered the question there, is that how do you like get a lot of experience in such a short span of time? Is it just the team building, or how do you shorten your
All the time,
Yeah.
you know, stay connected with all sorts of people, think expansively and be open-minded to say, you know what, I'm going to try that. So much of what I've been able to say has happened to me is because I've exposed myself to all sorts of people, listened to what they were saying and said, oh my goodness, I want to try that. I want to learn that. I want to do that with you. And yeah, you know, I mean, I'm in my 40s now. But
don't look like it, but
thank you. but you know, in that time period, in terms of, you know, from a very, very young age, I was always trying things. I, you know, went to a performing arts high school, and you know, I at first didn't live in the same area as the school, but I heard about the school, and I remember a guidance counselor in grade school talking to me and one other person. They're like, if you want to audition, this is when the auditions are, and I went. And I was like, okay. And I just like traveled to the school, I auditioned, I got in.
Yes,
I didn't
ma'am.
know anybody there, because a lot of times people go to the same feeder school as the people they've been growing up with. They stay in the same area, they go to the next school, go to the next school. For me, I was like, okay, I'm in this brand new school, it's an art school, and it was such a great decision for my life. And you know, I was in Mamma Mia with Mirvish Productions at the Royal Alexander Theatre, literally on stage in Mamma Mia for 2 years. And it's a very different life than what I'm living now, but I'm like, I'm curious.
severe, drastically different. Let me tell you that, because stage and then just running a company of like hiring folks is a really big difference. But again, coming back to the point, like your network is your network. Be the person that people want to work with, and keep networking, and you will find yourself in great positions where opportunities just come to you. And if you are prepared, then you'll make the best of it.
Totally.
I think that was a final note, and a really great note to end this interview with. It was wonderful talking to you, and thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks.
If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing and stay tuned for high quality content of Canada.